So you're listening to Makin Mighty, the Challenger Sessions. I'm Simon Greenwood-Haigh. I'm joined by my co-host, Scott Cramner. This is a show where we talk honestly about challenger brands and what it takes to build challenger brands, from some of the creative decisions behind it, some of the challenges they may face, and we'll get into some discussions from stuff we've seen in the industry, stuff we've done. But yeah, I mean, how do we know each other, mate?
Yeah, I think I first met you at the bottom of a pile of men playing rugby, didn't I?
You're not the only one to meet me there, but yeah.
So yeah, we've played rugby for a little while, and then yeah, obviously a few years ago when I went freelance, we started working together on a more professional basis, shall we say? So yes,
less piles of men.
Yeah, less piles of men.
Yeah.
So yeah, Simon was obviously at AB Foods at the time, and I'm a content creator. So video, animation, print, that sort of stuff. So yeah, we've had 3-4 years working together properly.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Lots of challenger type stuff, lots of stunts we've done.
Yeah.
You've had loads of fucking weird requests off me that you've just run with, which is ace.
Yeah. Can you brand a narrowboat? That's probably one of the biggest ones I've had. Or
yeah, I mean...
Can you turn Bridgewater Place into a can of peanut butter?
The answer is yes, always from Scott, which is why we work so well together. But yeah, cool. So there's going to be a few co-hosted episodes where we're going to chat through a few topics.
In this episode, we're going to get into a little bit of storytelling. So why buyers don't buy the story you're telling. As a creative, I'm going to pass over to you. What is the biggest issue you see from a buyer perspective on why buyers don't buy the story brands are telling?
So I think it's relevance. So if you're thinking about the commercial environment and seller to buyer, it's why should they give a shit? And I think founders often are just so passionate, so enthusiastic about what they've done, they want you to hear their story. But the truth is, when a product sits on shelf, that story is very difficult to put across. Not impossible, but very difficult, certainly in the detail that most founders go into. So the reason most buyers don't buy the storytelling is because most of it isn't relevant. So if you can pick out the bits that they should give a shit about because it's important to their shopper and means it's going to sell more, it's relevant, tell that bit. But I see a lot of presentations I've been pitched at a lot where it's, listen to my story. If you're selling to a buyer, it's their story. Your brand is the fucking sidekick, not the hero. They're the hero. You need to help them on their journey, their mission. And in fact, I teach people that I work with, the first 50% of whatever you're presenting shouldn't mention your brand. Your brand is a solution to help them reach their goal. So I think it's the relevant bits of the story important. So I'm not saying founder story isn't important, but pick out the relevant bits that other people should give a shit about. And if they want more, they'll ask more, I think. There are other examples where it's really important, I'm sure. I don't know if you've got any, but story does work in some instances, but I would say generally, just pick out the pertinent points.
Yeah, for sure. I think it is right in that it can be brand dependent. And I do think it's probably industry dependent sometimes as well. So, I mean, yeah, when I'm walking around a supermarket, I don't really see old El Paso's backstory. I know it and I like it.
And do people assume there isn't one because that's big brand? I don't know if there is or not, but do they assume there isn't one because it's big corporate?
Yeah,
as well?
probably so. I think in terms of a food and drink market, for me, that like sometimes that storytelling was, you know, like you alluded to, it is good. Personally, I don't think people are walking around the supermarket thinking, oh, well, Joe Bloggs from so-and-so has had this recipe passed down through years, and like it's not really important. If I'm walking around the supermarket, I want price and I want flavour. I don't want story. So, you know, like if a founder has had a diet of a meat alternative his entire life and is really healthy, like I'm not, whilst there is some assimilation for me with that, like I want to look after what I'm eating. I'm not necessarily sold by the founder and the way that he looks. It's more how it fits into my entire diet. One brand where I do think that's different, and it's probably one of my favourite brands, is Through Dark, the clothing brand. So I don't know if you've heard of them.
No.
I would say they're a fairly new clothing brand,
Okay.
but it's basically set up by two ex-SAS operatives who have basically, don't say that. I'm not going to say the names because I don't want them to jump out from behind the chair. But yeah, it's basically set up by two ex-SAS fellas who, you know, like, storytelling is important, and I think it's important because in a scenario where you're buying into a brand, you know, that they predominantly do sort of outdoor clothing. They are starting to go into more what I would deem leisure wear. Mm-hmm. But if I'm out on the side of Ben Nevis in a jacket, I want to know that it's been put through its paces by two fellas who've been rolling around on the floor in Iraq.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And their story comes across really well. You know, one of the founders has recently, I'm not going to name him. One of the founders has recently climbed Everest in all their gear, and he's done like the fastest ascent of Everest in seven days from London to Nepal. Up Everest, down Everest, and back to London in 7 days, which obviously
Time to wipe his ass.
yeah, I'm pretty sure he did have time to wipe his ass. But yeah, it's kind of like, you know, that for me, if I'm going into a supermarket and I'm looking at a meat alternative, do I trust what a founder's saying? Probably not. If I am going out on a weekend hiking with the lads and I want a decent pair of trousers, am I going to trust somebody that's put the kit through a rigorous venture up Everest? More than likely. Yeah. But I guess that's the way that brand lives. Like, some of the athletes they cover, you know, they've got like skiers, they've got mountaineers, you know, they've got Foxy, Jason Fox, the other, oh no, I've said it now, haven't I? The other ex-SAS guy.
Bleep it out, it's fine.
We'll have to cut that.
Redacted.
Bit. Yeah, but you know, like when they're constantly wearing and putting that brand through the paces, then you kind of, oh right, okay, well yeah, that must be decent gear. Mm-hmm. And I'll be honest, like every single piece of clothing that I've bought, like it's tested time. I've done long walks and I've camped over weekend outdoor camping and wild camping and stuff, and it, you know, it has stood the test of time. So,
but in that example, the relevance of that storytelling is credibility. The people that they're serving, they know it matters. Like, if the kit lets them down and they're in a sticky situation, that's a big fucking problem. So they use their story for credibility and product truths, which is massively relevant. But if they brought out a protein bar, you'd be like, well, how's that work? Like, maybe you fueled yourself out in Iraq, but there's a disconnect there. Whereas the reason for you buying is, I need something I can trust.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's my mark of trust.
Yeah. And I think that, you know, that does probably play its part somewhat in the supermarket, but, you know, the trust has to come with a flavour, not necessarily the story.
Yes.
So, you know, and then it goes back to what we've talked about before, about having that confidence in your product, your brand. Like, if you can back it up, then tell the story. Yeah. But sometimes I think, you know, back to some brands we've mentioned in previous episodes, like Ugly Drinks, it's you know, they've had this amazing story and they've grown the following and stuff, and when the products arrived on shelf, it tastes like rusty water.
Yeah. And I think so there are examples. I know I've kind of said generally buyers don't want to hear your story, but you think about the brand Stanley. Yeah. So I think Stanley now is purchased because of the social media presence. But the social media presence, I don't know if you heard the story when it came out, but it's one that was shared and it gave it a bit of virality, and that's what's built the brand. And now I think people are buying into an aspirational brand, and it delivers. But the story was that I think it was a woman in America where tragically a car caught fire, and the picture she posted on social media was the only thing that survived was my Stanley. Right. Which kind of reinforces that we're a really good fucking durable product. But then they jumped in, bought her a new car, treated her to loads of stuff, did an amazing job as a brand. But that, what was going to be like a 40 grand investment, was shared, went viral. It reinforced their messaging of what the product delivers. Yeah. And that was that isn't the Stanley story. I couldn't tell you Stanley story, but it's an example of their storytelling that reinforced the truths and was something that was massively shareable content. And now every fucker in the gym's got one. Not in my gym, but posh gyms.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's massively important. Like a story's fine, but I guess in terms of the point why buyers don't buy the story you're telling, sometimes that I would say that story is not necessarily needed to be told.
Yeah.
So I think you know, when you've got two fellas who have spent time rolling around the floor in Iraq, like, it's a story worth telling. So I think there's a fine line between hanging your hat on this brand story and sometimes maybe just going in with, actually, well, you know, we're going to be the cheapest, or we're going to be the best flavour. And like you said, secondly to that, we've also got a really cool story.
Yeah. And it's about place, isn't it? Because social media is the place for that, and actually having your founder story on there, having the founder face is what kind of works. But when you're stood in a transactional meeting or transactional place where a shopper is at fixture ready to buy your product off digital shelf, physical shelf, the story isn't coming through. So if that is your main talking point, the main reason somebody should buy, I think you've missed it. If you want them to hear a 15-minute anecdote of how your Auntie Barbara used to make this fucking whatever.
Gotta love Babs.
I don't have an Auntie Barbara, thankfully. So, but if that's your main point, then how's that going to come across when you've got a couple of seconds and that much shelf space to fill? So it should be, if it helps reinforce the relevant parts that mean people buy, fucking tell it.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, shut the fuck up, because we've got short attention spans. We're going to remember three things.
I'm going to bring out a brand that's...
Auntie Barbara.
Auntie Bab says shut the fuck up.
I'd buy shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Just because I think I'm irreverent and a bit of a twat.
And anyway, on shutting the fuck up.
Yeah.
We'll wrap this episode up, I think.
Yeah. So thanks for listening. If you found this episode useful, please share it with somebody in the industry, another challenger brand, somebody who's trying to build something, and hopefully they can learn something and take value from it. You can follow us, follow the podcast, follow us on social media for more conversations like this. Future episodes will have guests, we'll have different topics, and hopefully we'll be really getting under the skin of challengers and what makes them tick and how you can act and operate like a challenger.
We're also going to be shaping future episodes around real questions that founders have got. So if there's something you want us to dig into, whether that's brand, sort of growth, retail, positioning, send it in and we'll try and cover it off in future episodes. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.